Hi, I'm Dara Caponigro. I'm the creative director of Schumacher and also the editor-in-chief of the Schumacher Bulletin. So welcome everybody to our first deep dive with Dara. So here we are, and I wanted to start this series because I really wanted to do something that was educational and very specific to speak to interior design and kind of what goes into it. And I'm asking some of my favorite experts, and our very first expert, this is the first one that I'm doing, is with my dear friend Thomas O'Brien, who we all know is a genius, and he's somebody who has really shaped the American design aesthetic, I think, and the American design landscape. So I think you all know his design work, and you know his shops, Arrow and Copper Beach, and you're familiar with his product design. He does so many wonderful things for Century, and he does rugs for us at PFM and Reed and Barton. And Thomas, what am I forgetting?
Visual comfort.
Oh, visual comfort, right, which is huge.
Light.
Yeah. So Thomas is so good at so many things. It was hard to pick a subject for him to talk about. But one of the things that has really struck me over the years is just his uncanny ability to do gorgeous functional kitchens that all feel different. That, you know, I mean, I think of his kitchens and I really think of them as being the pinnacle of a great American kitchen. And so many people I know agree because I see people being inspired by your work. And I thought, well, let's go to the master, let's go to the originator and talk to him about what goes into his kitchen design. So Thomas, it's such a pleasure to have you here and such an honor. So thank you. And I see that you're sitting in one of my favorite kitchens, your kitchen on Long Island. It's the Academy Kitchen.
Yeah.
And I had the great pleasure of photographing it twice, once for, well, I can't remember, but I know we photographed it for Domino. We did a fun kitchen story and included it there. But tell us a little bit about your design process. So you have a client. How do you decide what their kitchen is going to look like to begin with?
I feel like the kitchen is the heart of everything. I mean, it's such an easy thing to say, but a lot of times with a client, it's just the designing of a house can begin all kinds of different ways. It could be color, it could be materials, it could be upholstery, it could be, you kind of find the thing that they can focus on that will get you into the design details of it. And I mean, for me, everything that I design is about details. I love designing millwork. I love details that have some kind of spirit to them that, you know, connect to the idea of the house or connect to the sort of age that you're trying to make it be. A lot of times I do things that are more traditional, that it's about finding the way that it feels more modern or what makes it young, or if there's something more modern, to find the way that it's not too severe. There will, you know, and maybe that's about the material for the cabinets. We always look at old kind of source material and things. Of course, it's about the place too. And right along with it in the very beginning, I'm always looking at the floor plan of it. The floor plan, in a kitchen especially, you have to be in the floor plan of it nonstop from the beginning and think through all the different scenarios of how it will be laid out with as you kind of guide through what you're thinking about.
Yeah, I mean, you are a master at a floor plan. I remember when we bought the house that we're living in now, the kitchen was kind of, I mean, the bathroom was the powder room was an integral part of the kitchen, and I wanted a big open kitchen. And you were like, oh, well, let's just put the powder room over here. Like in an instant, you saw where it should all be. And I have this beautiful Eden kitchen now that I never thought I would ever have because it was all cut up before. So you are a master at that.
The thing about everything, whether it's laying out furniture or laying out a kitchen, it's like I'm always trying to think about what makes it feel the most comfortable, the most easy, the most peaceful. Like how things can be all kinds of design aesthetics, but I just think finding the way that things feel the most restful or the way they're in the right place. And helping somebody decide about that in the kitchen, where they want things and how they use it, and kind of talking it through and imagining different scenarios is just a really big part of the kitchen part of doing a house.
Should we start with the picture of your very first kitchen? Annie, do you mind scrolling to that?
Oh my gosh. This is the kitchen in that the apartment you just put in the bulletin, and it's just a silly little kitchen teeny thing. I was so happy in this kitchen. It has that pegboard, and it just had that pegboard thing, which you know, in the library kitchen now too, and in many kitchens, kind of parts and pieces of it, even hidden, even in really modern kitchens, we use that element so much. It's that sort of Julia Child wall of a pegboard that you can move around. But I don't know, there's not much to say about this except I just adored the little place of it. And
yeah, it's so cute.
Well,
you've come a long way since this kitchen. I mean, obviously you didn't design it. It was there when you arrived. Okay, well, let's go to the next one. So this is your apartment on 57th Street.
And so the kitchen was the teeniest little thing. It was an 80s kitchen. It was about.
Yeah, I think there's more. Sorry, isn't there? Yeah, there we go. Okay.
The thing is like a lot of times I say in an apartment or even in a house, it's the knuckles of things that connect things. And this kitchen was a third less the size. There were a couple of closets that moved around in the hallway, and the entrance to this, and like it's a galley kitchen, of course, but it was meant to be. I always had this fantasy that when I would come to New York, I would live in a early modern kind of like 1920s, 1930s building with these metal casement windows. And the whole thing about this kitchen is it feels like a lot of the early kind of deco and modernist furniture that I liked, and sort of the details of the cabinetry. It's so simple, but I hear and in other places, I wanted it to feel like it could have been the kitchen. I mean, the thing that was there was a disaster and it wasn't big enough and all of that, but it's really important. That's what I say about like it almost feeling restful or peaceful. Like it feels like this was this kitchen that every built that we live in Park Vendôme, that every Park Vendôme kitchen had this one, or, I don't know. And whether that's from the little signals hardware is something I love. I love these bullet hinges on this cabinet, or I love that it's a full frame face and that it's just smooth, and it reminds me of a piece of deco furniture.
Right, but you could have done anything, right? I mean, I know you were inspired by deco and the time period of the building, but like, how did you refine your choices, and how did you decide that the cabinet should be flat? And was the configuration more or less this, or no?
But it needed to feel this kind of vintage urban like idea to me, and it had to have. I mean, I felt like it. I don't know, when I first moved into the Spartan too, a lot of it, for me, everything about it, I don't know if you remember, that it originally had no art on the walls and everything. It all had to have simplicity. But I also believe simplicity can have detail. And in the end, there is kind of detail in this kitchen too. It just, I don't know, everything from the pale gray floor, the mosaic floor, they're just all kind of very simple choices. And it's kind of almost, I don't know, it has that cinematic kind of plain black and white feeling to it, or something from that era to me. I found those those recessed lights that are set into the mirror. The mirror backsplash is the thing I do a ton and love and try to talk everyone into doing. It's this thing that, because this is this galley kitchen, but the kitchen is just expanded by the mirror backsplash. And it's sort of like in a barber shop or something, where if you don't look directly into the mirror, it's below the cabinets, but it expands the counter and it makes everything feel bigger. And actually the cabinets kind of float. But the funny thing is you kind of use the mirror and what you're looking at on the counter as you do things. It's a very kind of useful device to, I mean, it creates a lot, obviously, even in this image, that it creates all this brightness in this kitchen. But time and again, I find that, kind of watching in the mirror what I'm doing as much as what I'm doing. I don't know if that makes sense, but
yeah, no, I understand. So it's functional in a way also.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. And are there any tricks to doing the mirrored backsplash?
The trick is, I guess, the amount that you have to clean it, I guess, more. But
But it's just a
around this,
regular mirror, right?
and
And I've seen you put electrical outlets in there and,
yeah.
you know,
I mean, it's 100% my go-to thing, and you'll see more of it when we go through here, or at least in parts of the kitchen. It's just, um, it just works, you know. So.
mhm. Okay, Annie, let's go to the next slide, please. Oh, so this is a detail in your cabinet.
This is the thing we do again and again in closets. We have a little bit more elaborate ones, but these, I don't know. I have a little bit of a, you know, thing about continuous peg holes. Not that we don't do that too, but I love when I can make it part of the millwork that the shelf supports exist. And it's just an old, even older than the era of this kind of detail that I always think looks handsome inside.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It almost looks like a Bauhaus kind of thing, or is that right? Or
Well, there was a whole kind of, you know, as much as it's American design, it's sort of Bauhaus and other things that influence sometimes my decision making and sort of the, you know, the nature of what it looks like and where it comes from. I mean, I'm always, the Bauhaus is something I just love in terms of
yeah.
simplicity
I mean,
and
there's
also the beauty of the design.
yeah, this picture to me in a way sums up your work because you have this wonderful Russell Wright tableware and then you have more traditional things and more rustic things. I mean, you're so much about the mix and you're also like, I think your breadth of work can go from very modern to very traditional. So it's a fun image from that perspective also.
It's funny. It's like things to me too are like where they came from, in I don't know. I provenance on things in funny, quirky ways. It's something that like those on on that shelf there, those brown pie plates. I bought them in a shop that used to be in Soho, and I use them all the time for dinner. And they're these brown pie plates, and they belong to this guy who was a choreographer, who had the most beautiful. Everything was white or brown, and perfectly white, everything. And I just always loved them. You know, just knowing. I was always intrigued every time I went in that shop. Do you have anything more from John Butler? Do you have any, like, you know, what? And everything I love, but those are, I don't know. Sometimes it's the spirit of things and where they came from that I'm drawn.
Right. Well, I know you love this story, and I know that you love, like, you think of yourself as like a protector of things for it to be passed on. And the other thing that I think is really interesting about you, in terms of kitchen design, also, is that you're not brand obsessed. So let's keep going because I want to talk about appliances. This might not be the kitchen to talk about it, but I do. Oh, this was my favorite kitchen of all time. So I remember seeing this kitchen in Town and Country, right?
Town and
So
Country.
I ran, oh, and my jaw dropped. And we'll see in a little while how I got inspired by this kitchen. But why don't you talk a little bit about this kitchen?
Well, it was this. I had done this big kind of industrial cash wrap for the store. That was at this period in time, the store on Spring Street downstairs we'd opened up with more accessories and stuff. And I imagined this huge kind of industrial rolling, almost laboratory table with these wonderful big wheels on it and all, and it had this walnut top. And that was one of the things that this client, when she came to me, that she was inspired by and liked so much, and that was the heart of this in the first place. But this apartment was a duplex loft in Soho. They'd always lived in Soho in kind of a modern apartment, and they almost toyed with moving to Park Avenue. And the whole apartment has beautiful kind of Georgian moldings and beautiful millwork and profiles. But she was European and had this kind of wonderful different sense, which I learned a lot from her actually in putting this together. And the rooms opened on to the next room, like that movie Fanny and Alexander, you know, just those European rooms with these beautiful big doors. And one of the things that I think makes this kitchen really special is this wall of cabinets with no counter. And it's such a European thing and can be done on a narrow wall, but time and again, I feel like, especially sometimes kitchens today that get to be too big, there was enough counter in the rest of this apartment. To me, besides the cash wrap, beautiful industrial island, it's that wall of cabinets. Part of it's a pantry. This is when I first started using this wonderful glass from Bentheim that is kind of, it has a flowed character to it, and it's not only kind of seeded, but it's kind of a little bit milky and it's quite a beautiful glass. But I love this sort of hutch, or the full cabinet wall a lot in this kitchen.
It's really stunning.
Especially the refrigerator set into it, I think is really nice. And then a lot of the apartment has these kind of coffered ceilings, and I don't know, millwork is very important to me, and I design, whether it's a kitchen or a library or a closet, it's a get as much attention as goes into making a piece of furniture in a very specific way. It's super important, especially in the what can be the elements of a beautiful kitchen.
Yeah. Oh,
Those are
that's
the wonderful wheels that I found in Granger, the hardware company.
Yeah, so that's a great detail, because Annie, can you go back 1 second? So the stainless steel part, so can you actually chop on the part that's the wood and the stainless, can you explain that?
I think they use, because the stainless steel is on the end by the stove, mostly it was kind of, and she kept pots and pans below there in an open kind of way. And I mean, this is the era too of Dean and DeLuca, and down at when it was still on Prince Street and all, and it was kind of like, this kind of open SOHO loft kitchen, but had this other kind of more refined and traditional character to it. Yeah. I think she loved the walnut. We varnished it here, the walnut of the Cash Rapid Arrow, and that was just a protective part to it. This was the first kitchen too, which I do a lot now, where she had it was stainless, but there was in this location and on the counter opposite, there was a little piece that you took out of the counter for scraps that went right into the garbage. Mm-hmm. I love doing that detail. We do a lot of times we cut it out of marble, and I love these lifting handles. This is this old Georgian style handle that unfortunately they're dropping, like the biggest one, which I love, but it's just this lifting handle that goes on trays or chests that is just a wonderful piece of hardware. And we wouldn't, then it was only available in brass, we would nickel plate them. And it's a thing from another era used in this modernist way in this place that's having like a modern aesthetic, but also, she was drawn to, they almost moved to Park Avenue, or she was the one who would come in and want the Edwardian cabinet, and my more traditional clients would come in and love the Lucite chair. I think it's sometimes that clients, or we all, are attracted to the things we don't have in some way and want to find a way to put them in our lives if they become appealing. Mm-hmm. It's this I like, a lot of times it's like balancing those contrasts.
Yeah, so beautiful. Okay, Annie, let's go to the next one. Oh, that's really cool, the way you can see through.
There was the part of it that there was an island part where there was transparency on both sides. Which is kind beautiful. Of really good. And then this was on Perry Street.
Right. So I shot this for El Decor, I remember. Yeah. And tell us about your inspiration for this.
There was this crazy, like weird, rough image from 80s magazine of this kitchen with this kind of, see how the edge is tapered, but it was a concrete edge on this counter and marble set into it. It was kind of a little funky, very hippie. And there were drawer fronts. I mean, the thing was so tattered. I don't even know where I found it, but that were kind of like a clapboard house, but then cut with this beautiful detail to a big, thick chunk of oak. And I don't know, this is an example of like, for these clients, everything was modern. Some of it very fine, like Prouvé furniture, and there was this way that I had them buying really inexpensive $100 things and Eames chairs and stuff, mixing it with all of this beautiful collected Prouvé, really valuable furniture, but also finding a materiality that made this sort of modern aesthetic, which started out like a little more crisp, into something more soft, and that was the cerused oak. And honestly, literally, it seems so silly that I'm making a point about it, how ratty this article from this magazine was, but it actually charmed them. You know, it was like, it was wholesome, and honestly, that was a little hippie, and it was a little bit cool in that way. And so obviously there's things about it that are more slick, but it was just the blending of those things. This is a favorite light from Woka that I like to use. It's the Vienna, I mean, a beautiful other early modernist thing. That's the subway light, the Vienna subway light, and it's just the bulb is just protruding a little bit from the metal.
And what is that? So there's an inset marble into the counter. And what does that mitered edge do to the kitchen?
It just, I don't know, it was beautiful. I kind of have this way that I fall in love with details and how would they translate into furniture and stuff. And I loved it in this, it softens the edge of that island and the counters, but it's such a beautiful shape. We've made it subsequently in the same way, but marble, and had very thick marble edge with marble inset. But it does have a very, I mean, it's very practical. It's a very soft feel. And, you know, and it's from the world of other shapes and things that, you know, of modernist furniture, and it's interesting, the mix of the concrete and the marble, you know, too, is an idea, just kind of funky and great, I think.
The other thing that I think is really interesting is that you chose brass hardware. You know, I think that was a really interesting choice. Because back then nobody used brass, nobody.
You'll see.
And you mixed it with the nickel light fixtures.
The thing is I kind of fell in love with this handle, which, and originally I was buying it at Gracious Home, and then, but my kitchen at the Academy, which we'll come to, has the same, actually I'd done it there first, but the same hardware, and it's a brushed brass, and I just love the softness of it, and it's just a different highlight in the space. And I don't know, I don't think they have to be the same thing necessarily, but it is a soft, everything was about doing stuff, and has always been with these clients and things we collect and find, and the importance of it being soft and easy and peaceful. I know I say that word a lot, but it's very important that it be that, and not jarring. I mean, I think some of kitchens can be very jarring
and flashy. It's not flashy. I think that's something also.
I mean, some kitchens, I don't know, there are a lot of kitchens now that are so elaborate and I know that some are beautiful, but the color or like the intensity of them, they almost look like a set to me more than like something to live with. Like, right. I want to live with things. I don't know. I love the soldier course of the brick too, and the wall. That's an extension from the fireplace. It's one of their beautiful Prouvé pieces too. This is a very special kitchen.
So this is my kitchen that was inspired by that other kitchen that you saw. It's about, I don't know, 1/8 of the size, 1/12 of the size, but I fell in love with it. And when we lived in this apartment with an old kitchen and no dishwasher for about 10 years, I would say. And then Thomas came to the rescue and he adapted that other kitchen to my space in a different way. But
it was cool. Like your kitchen was kind of almost, you put a Sub-Zero into it, and it was kind of very deconstructed in a way. You had this old West Side kitchen, right? But wasn't the refrigerator sort of standing? It's sort of like that's like a Soho loft kitchen in the sense that like the refrigerator is standing there, and it was kind of cool that it was deconstructed.
Oh, that's what it was. I did invest in I had this 1950s stove and a really ratty kitchen, no dishwasher, but I did invest in a good refrigerator. So the refrigerator was a built-in refrigerator that was sitting there because I thought, well, one day I'm going to have a kitchen and I'll be able to, yeah.
But it's almost like the thing is that the choice of this more simple, open stainless table, but I love the gray rubber of the wheels. I mean, it's a funny thing that they're not black, but it's a sort of a thread that carries from that because because it was smaller and stuff, and the openness was great. But can we go back to the other picture? But like for example, the narrowness of those cabinets, because they were kind of a little narrow, right?
Yeah, they must have been like 10 inches deep or something.
But they were perfect for your, like, the whole idea was to take that kitchen and kind of from the Soho loft. And by the way, I keep reinventing this kitchen lots of times over and over again with the same kind of beaded edge drawer and a raised panel or not. And the beaded edges on everything are so important, even around the interior of the cabinet doors. But I don't know. It just like you wanted this complete cabinetry thing that enveloped you, and then also that, I mean, you have beautiful dishes and beautiful glasses, and I mean, how pretty is that with that open?
Right. Well, like you, I'm a tabletop junkie.
Yeah. Except you have gorgeous stuff.
Well, so do you. So this kitchen I had the privilege of seeing in person. This was incredible to me. So tell us about your process with this, how you got here. I know it was a loft downtown.
So this was the top of the Thread building, this huge loft with it had the rotunda in it, and it had all of this great kind of Beaux-Arts, like gorgeous plaster work, a lot of it missing. And that building, you know, when it was converted earlier on in the 70s or 80s, had been all caught up in all kinds of not such nice interventions in bathrooms and kitchens and what they were about. And so we had to recreate a lot of casings and things at the windows. And then the client was a bachelor we were also putting together this collection of modernist furniture and things kind of really early on, when the auction houses like Phillips and stuff were really selling lots of it. But and it was a loft in every way. And we bought, you know, Georgian and Edwardian things for this that meshed with the architecture, the original architecture, and then also created modern architecture that, like these folding doors with this kind of gauzy linen in between and beautiful nickel stops on the windows. So this whole thing opened up into this big loft kitchen.
But how did you come up with the idea of creating this, you know, sort of like a room when you wanted it to be, and then it was completely open when you wanted it completely open? Like I thought that I had never seen that before.
Well, it was like, I don't know. I mean, I love screens and folding screens and stuff too, but it was also in conversation with the client about sometimes that there would be entertaining and then it would be catering to be closed, but he definitely wanted the loft and open kitchen. I mean, this is like the open kitchen that's like, I mean, it's this enormous space. And then remember, it opened into the huge corner of the building with you know, that big fireplace, because it was the club. This was the space, was the club for the Thread building. So it was on this kind of massive scale, but so much of it had been lost. But so, you know, it's open kitchen in a different sense scale wise than your typical open kitchen. But like in the end, he loved the enormous space of all of it. So he wanted it to be able to fold up, and I don't know, just other things that, I don't know, the idea of those beautiful panel doors and the nickel stops and everything, it becomes its own modern kind of beauty. It stood up to the beauty of some of the things, some of the 20s and 30s American
So unique.
things we were buying.
It's really so unique. And do you know if that kitchen, I know he sold that apartment, do you know if it still exists?
You know, he sold it, and I think it stayed exactly the way it was, and then I think it has sold again, and I don't know. But
Well, Sophia, my daughter Sophia, is so sad that we sold that apartment on 89th Street, and she follows it, and it was for sale not that long ago, and you wouldn't be happy to see what they did to the kitchen. They painted it like an apricot color, and then they cut out one of the glass doors to put a microwave in it. It's so sad.
no.
Like they just don't know what they have. It's so sad.
I know.
Okay.
Crazy color kitchen is not one of my, not one of my things, but the wall of the cabinets there, I think, are kind of nice. That's kind of nice, and that piece of statuary marble, that beautiful vein, that, you know, I don't know. I think people have learned to appreciate marble more now, and kind of exotic marbles. It used to be that everybody wanted marble to look like nothing, but I don't know.
Well, I think that's something that's happened to you as as you've progressed, right? I mean, I think I've seen you use more interesting marbles as later in your career. Am I wrong?
Do you remember, like, I don't know, I love, especially, it's a kind of European thing, I think, but do you remember Dean and DeLuca on Broadway, and the coffee, and those beautiful tables at the front that were in this exotic red, purple marble? It's such a wonderful thing that,
Yeah.
so I don't know, yeah, definitely learned to appreciate the beauty of a very special. But I say I have this funny thing about marble too. It depends on what it's for, but like it's ridiculous that I'm saying this, but it's like a lot of times I want it to, especially in a more traditional sort of setting. Like even in this loft, even though this was new, it's obviously was made new, all new for him, recently renovated and stuff. I want it to feel like it's real, like it can be there. It's not just a decorative idea. It's not just, kitchen. And sometimes that was just made. And it is too, but I feel like this almost feels like it could have been here for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And I like marble that feels old. And it's ridiculous. Obviously, it's, millions of thousands, hundreds of thousands of years old, but I like it to feel, I don't know, to have it be evocative of something that you, mind's eye or in your imagination, feel like it's been repurposed, or it's been, refurbished or refined or carried over. I mean,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I
Like there's a
love the
story.
idea of
Yeah.
like what's saved, and in we've, so much of New York has been torn apart a lot lately, but I don't know, I connect to, things that have a legacy a lot, even if it's making something that feels like that but is totally new. I
Yeah.
love, by the way, the bullet hinges on this cabinet too.
So beautiful. All right, so this is the kitchen that you're in right now.
Yeah.
Annie, maybe you can go, yeah, here we go. So I think this kitchen has had such an influence on all designers out there. One of the things that I love about it is it has a very humble cork floor. And then the other thing that struck me when I was there shooting it for, I can't remember what, but your appliances, it's like they're not fancy appliances.
No, I mean, it was, well, so the thing was doing the house, and I don't think it has to be all the time either, but doing this house, I mean, the thing was crumbling into the ground. No one wanted it. It was this big old boys' school that was like left alone for years and years. The kitchen was this ramshackle mess of, it was an absolutely terrible mess. And the last of the wood cabinets that existed went into the bathrooms as cabinets, with, they're sort of so pretty in the bathrooms, with, towels and things in them. And I wanted this kitchen to feel like there was a whole idea that the house had been built, the school had been built in the 1830s, but this wonderful woman had brought it down, moved it down the street, and restored it in the 1920s. And of course, I'm speaking again about the 1920s and 1930s, and like the sort of Bauhaus aesthetic, and that's where the nature of the kitchen island and everything comes from. But these cabinets are Swiss, and my contractor at the time, he was a distributor for them. They're white painted metal. They feel like they could have been from that era in a way. I mean, it's definitely now or then, but it was like they feel like they could have been the kitchen in that 20s, 30s time that this was built. And then I also wanted to have, there are upper cabinets, but they're behind that chalkboard and where the refrigerator is, and in the butler's pantry there's cabinets, but they're all to one side, and I wanted this beautiful marble shelf, and those marble brackets, and the simplicity of it all. But for me, it's like I love that it feels new and old and all of those things together, and I love that big Long Island.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I think is interesting is that the counter, like the window drops below the counter. So I think somebody else would have changed the windows so that they were a little bit higher or something like that. So explain your thought process behind that.
Well, the frame is just of the window is just above, but the bottom style of the window is this far below the counter. And what I did was I just put a little, there's a teeny quarter-inch high curve of marble right at the face of it. But a lot of times in a kitchen, especially city apartments, the sink wants to be right at the window or whatever it might be, and the window might drop below it. Like, I don't know, I feel like there's always a way. There's always a design solution. To me, there's always a way. And there's always a way to find the best way to detail it and the best solution to fix it or something. And I don't know. They're just the way they ultimately sit right on the counter is kind of lovely. And except today, which is so dark and gray, it's always such beautiful light in here. And
So did you study architecture at the Cooper Union?
I was in the art school.
Oh, yeah.
But, you know, I've always been obsessed with space and color, and I dream and like 3D. And, you know, I don't know, I'm always thinking like sort of in volume. That's the chalkboard.
With the old-fashioned telephone. And then that looks into the vestibule when you first walk in, right?
Yeah, and there was this, I don't know if we have a whole picture of that, but that pot rack that was, there's the cabinet right behind me. That's a very different thing, but the tall cabinet's kind of a, you know, as you know, it's filled with dishes and stuff. And but the house, you know, it's this, a lot of the house is painted this glossy, this is all safety white and safety black, these, you know, classic Benjamin Moore colors. So I don't know, it just appeal. I love the, you know, this sort of punctuation of the black throughout, but these doors. And by the way, to me, these doors are beautiful to me. I saw this one door into a Dutch door.
So it wasn't a Dutch door, you turned it
Yeah.
into a Dutch door?
Yeah, they were all repurposed. Everything is repurposed, and
That's so
it's
cool.
actually really useful so the cat cannot be tortured by the dogs when she's having her food. But it's like, it's a kind of like, you know, our friend Laura Reason, who shot all these pictures, calls this the beautiful picture. The thing is like the black doors throughout the house, you know, it was this, parts of the house are from the 1830s, parts of it are from the 1920s. It's like, I thought of it in painting the doors all black, that it would be this kind of modernist, like Bauhaus kind of thing. It turns out that it's like, you know, completely a colonial Williamsburg detail, and it's just so crisp and nice. And
what kind of paint did you use for those doors? I mean, they're so shiny.
It's all the safety black.
And Benjamin Moore, and it's all high gloss.
All high gloss. I mean, you know, sometimes I get beaten up for having too many things, and I mean, I do love and I collect things and stuff, but there is, I think, a big part of the kitchen, when it can be a part of it, is the furnishings and things that are elements that sort of make it the room that it is too. And obviously in this old house and with this space, like this little metal industrial table painted safety white, and I mean, even those black stools that I've collected from just junk stores. There was a client, we just did this fancy kitchen, and we were looking for bar stools around this much fancier island. And in the end, these stools are the thing that they wanted, because they actually are really easy to move around and shove in the corner and the whole thing. So we found a shaker. Actually, Matthew, our store manager, found this maker of currently of 4 or 5 styles of shaker stools, and we bought those and we painted them safety black, and they're so happy to have them in their kitchen. But
they're so cool.
Anyway.
So Annie, can you go back just for 1 second? Because I'm struck by a detail of the Dutch doors. So here, I mean, I think it's interesting that you have 2 different knobs, right? You have the white enamel knob and then the brass knob. Was that by choice? You know, someone else would have matched them.
Well, I throughout this house, I mean, this house is, as you know, labor of love, and there's so many wonderful things. And anything that was any good wasn't thrown away. And there were some odd mismatches, and that that's a rim lock. There's a brass box on the other side of that, and the doors are actually kind of narrow and stuff. I mean, I love hardware and all. So there's a door here, and then the door to the screen porch, which was added, has that same lock on it, and they're brass. But throughout the house, there are mostly brass knobs that are tiny, and I love them, but that's all I had. So there were a few odd white porcelain ones, a few Bennington brown ones, and some black ones, and then some junk. I got rid of all the junk, and I collected other white and black ones. The black ones are harder to find, and then I kind of went through all the doors and decided who got to be white and who got to be black. But they're mostly on. There got to be like, so it's a lot of times that will be white on the inside, but a black knob on the door outside because it looks really handsome on the outside. And then like the Bennington brown ones, there's one or two because I don't know,
And
but they're mostly on exterior doors.
And when you do that, do you think it sends like signals to people's brain? Like, I don't know, like, do you think people notice that other than you?
Infused in a lot of times I like when there isn't the design answer, like I couldn't get any more of those knobs and I couldn't go to, at this point, an expensive, I wasn't going to replace all the knobs in the house. I just couldn't do it, so sometimes the quirky solution is the solution that's like the most charming too. And that's even in a very fancy house too. So, and I probably am inclined to try to find places like that those things happen. This is a country house too, so it's kind of easier. But I would say that and that might be furnishings, or that might be like in someone's modern house, the printed fabric that I talked them into, or the rag rug that we upholster something with in the living room. You know what I mean? It's like, I like happenstance and quirky things, and I just think it just has to be thoughtful choices,
All right, so let's do one more kitchen and then we have some questions for you to answer, okay?
Okay. So this is all that's here is from this Fifth Avenue apartment, this beautiful walnut, like French polished walnut. There's my mirrored backsplash. A wonderful floor through apartment that we did some years back. And by the way, it's that same beaded edge, very clean, not a raised pan, but just very, very clean. And it's French polished walnut. Or the doors in the apartment were all, a lot of times like, so I kind of obsess about the doors in a house, period, like what they'll be. And I kind of don't always have white doors with white casings. They're usually painted deeper or a contrast, or a lot of times we're doing polished doors or whatever it might be. I think doors are the furniture of a building or the furniture of an apartment. And there's sometimes a way that those doors connect to the kitchen. Like they're kind of primary things. And this was the butler's pantry in this kitchen. The kitchen was painted and the butler's pantry was this beautiful French polished walnut, like the doors.
It really is so luxurious.
But especially in a butler's pantry, the mirror is always a beautiful detail.
Yeah, yeah. What's the next kitchen? I'm just worried about time. Oh, let's just show this because this is so different than all the other ones. And I think it's so important to show.
Well, this is just the kitchen and the garden house here at the library. And I don't know, I was bound and determined to find something cheap to do that would be, I wanted to do board-to-board construction. There was a conversation about painting it too. And the cedar smells absolutely lovely. We had some Connemara marble, this Irish marble left over from the kitchen. And it's just like this magic little space in the garden house that there's a pizza oven outside and stuff. And I don't know.
It really is so charming.
It's just charming.
Those little curtains too. Is that a vintage fabric?
No, it's this, there's napkins and tablecloth. These are actually shower curtains, but there's a whole kind of Giverny, there's a pale yellow and blue thing. And the room just outside this where the pizza oven is. It's an outdoor living room. It's painted pale yellow with a pale blue ceiling. And there's a lot of elements of the garden, like the oval and the walled garden and stuff, that have this kind of vibe of Giverny. And even those dishes, which are not the like Haviland ones, they're just some funny ones I found that were from the yellow with the blue band. You know, it's like classic Monet, like that dish. But the yellow and blue together.
It is so charming. I just love it.
Thanks.
I'm ready to move in. Okay, so we have a few questions. So someone asked about the black paint, and it's Safety Black from Benjamin Moore. Does it have a number?
There's, you can get it mixed, now it is with paint so much, you can get it mixed into whatever you want. But Safety Black and Safety White, as I first knew them, and if you go into a True Value Hardware, it's on the shelf. And, it's this high gloss. The suspension that they're in is, always changing, but like we have a, it's the one we got is this one. It's like comes mixed in a can already done in the hardware store.
Okay. Let's see what other questions we have. Are mirrored backsplashes just solid mirrors?
I think in a bar once we did an antique mirror, but mostly we just do solid clear mirror, really nice clear mirror. And like I said, it's like this, you use it as you see. It's funny when you're cooking, you find the thing that's on the back, hidden by the thing on the counter. It's subliminal. You just become aware of it, and you're not looking in it too. So
right. Someone asked, how are the drawer fronts angled in the West Village kitchen?
It's actually cut out of a really thick, solid piece of oak, and it's almost like clapboard. And at the bottom, it must be, I don't know, at least 2.5 inches thick. And there's a finger pull, a curved, it's a beautiful shape. It's a finger pulled shape that's cut all along the bottom. It's rounded, and then the edges are kind of facet cut in. So the top is about, a 1/2 inch thick on the top, and it gets quite wide. And it's just this nice, wonderful chunk of oak, and well cerused and really beautiful.
Okay. So someone asked, how many square feet is this kitchen? I'm not sure which kitchen they're referring to. So if you want to type in your question again, let us know. Someone says, I love the comment. Sometimes there isn't a design answer. Sometimes it's just the way it is. It's nice.
I don't know. I design, I don't know, in this way of, I don't know. I don't know that I fit into the categories of pages in a magazine of like this thing and this thing and this thing and this thing, And although sometimes there'll be a new faucet or something that we like, it's just like the most important thing for me is for that it to come together as a whole feeling, a whole, sort of story. And also navigating that through choices. I'm doing several kitchens now with people, and like, this one kitchen we were working on, and it had inherited kind of a way it was being thought through or laid out, and it just had problems, collisions, and where it wouldn't necessarily function so well. Or I don't know, sometimes someone's whole idea, recently we were doing a kitchen, and the whole design idea was that it would be black, and then because of this time right now, they've decided to change that and picked a different color, actually, of something they loved in one of my books, but not of a kitchen, but of a different space. And it's like, I don't know, it just evolves. And like, you hopefully look at it enough times in true drawings and in true like moments of, design meetings together. Really, mostly with clients, we really work on designing things together. It evolves to being a complete idea that fits for them.
Right.
And I don't know. I believe investing the time and making it all be looked at again and again and again, so it really works. It's not just getting it done. It's not just like picking things.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. It's lots of layers.
So there's an authenticity and an integrity to everything. So here's a question. Do you specify mostly marble countertops? What about quartzite or quartz?
We've done some fancier onyx and things. The synthetic counters, I have a really, they're poisonous. They're bad for the world beyond. So I'm kind of allergic to them.
Because of the environment, you mean? Environmentally, they're bad for the world?
Yeah, they're just completely, toxic. The resins and stuff that put together and reconstitute all that stuff is super bad. And people who work on manufacturing them get very sick. And I don't know, I'm kind of like
Wow, I didn't realize that.
terrified
That's
of
good to know. Okay.
synthetic stone. Doesn't it just sound like a bad thing?
Okay. Someone says, do you only use inset cabinets?
Only use what do you think? Inset?
Inset.
I don't know, maybe that means that, like, in my first kitchen, that instead of overlay drawers or overlay doors, maybe it depends. Like if I'm interpreting it the right way, like this kitchen, the drawers are overlay. There's no frame. You don't see a frame. And except on the very end, there's no carcass that you see. And a lot of the kitchen that was yours, the more traditional ones, I'm usually seeing a frame. I like to see the cabinet. It tends to be in a more modern aesthetic, usually where it's an overlay drawer where the drawer sits in front of the carcass of the cabinet or the cabinet door. And I kind of don't really like European hinges so much, but sometimes, which is mostly the kind of hinge that's used on an overlay. Otherwise, a lot of times then we'll use pivot hinges, which are at the top and the bottom.
Okay. So. Wow, this really is the nitty gritty. Good, I love it, I love it. Okay, I noticed that all your cabinetry are a single hue. Are you not a fan of the trend towards the unfitted kitchen, i.e. uppers and lowers being different materials or finishes?
I think they can be, for sure. And we've done them. It's just not in the selection of this. We're looking at some different materials in a kitchen that we're doing right now too, for parts of the cabinetry. And I think that it could be beautiful. It just has to be the right thing for the house. And sometimes it's very contrasted, where it's like a raw oak or something with a more painted finish.
Okay. So the question about how many square feet, it's the all white kitchen. I think that means the kitchen in the Thread building, maybe.
That was big. I don't know. I'm so bad with square footage. I am so bad with square footage. I mean, it was like living room size. I mean, that loft, it was enormous.
Yeah.
It was the top floor the top primary corner of that whole building. It was enormous, but
yeah, I mean, I think it was like 8,000 square feet or something, right?
Something like that. Something like that.
It was big.
Yeah.
Not the kitchen, but the loft itself.
Yeah.
All right. Does the shelving detail from the first kitchen have a name? The first kitchen, was that the Town and Country kitchen?
Shelving detail. Oh, you mean I don't know. It's a cabinet. If you open up a little
Oh, I know. Yeah.
If you open up a little cabinet, a vintage, I've been getting odd pieces of furniture since I was a kid. Sometimes a shelf rests on two little, ledges. And I profiled them in different shapes and used it in a detail in different ways. And you've seen me cut them different ways and all, but or a linen press quite often will have, like a real true linen press will have linen press drawers that will pull out and they'll slide on, wooden slides. It's basically a wooden slide or wooden shelf support that just goes some scale of front to back.
Mm-hmm.
And it's I guess it's a wooden shelf support or a wooden slide or I don't know.
Okay, here's another one. Why are the mirror backsplashes installed over a stone backsplash rather than just all mirror?
Because I mean, bathrooms and kitchens, I mean, I think there has to be a backsplash, and because just water, if you, I mean, I suppose there's a way to detail it absolutely and be safe about it and protect it, but water and other things run to the back of a counter and do no matter what, no matter how good you are at policing things, unless it's not really used, water can seep up the back. So it's like, it's literally a backsplash is a curb that, you know, protects things. And so I, like I think you were asking me, or like before we started even doing this, what are pet peeves? Like in a bathroom or something, I can't stand a vanity that like the counter goes directly to wallpaper, because it's always, you know, ruined. It's again, it's very practical. A backsplash is a really practical detail and kind of necessary, unless it's, you know, a stone backsplash.
Right. Okay. We're going to do 3 more quick questions. How does flooring work its way into the kitchen design process? For example, why cork in your own kitchen?
It was soft and beautiful. I love the color. It was cheap. It's like $1 in a dream. But it's now, it actually finally was worn out, and now it's like these, which was also, you know, the floor here is different now. It's this white marble, like just 12 by 12, really modest, like the old Dean and DeLuca floor, or any like deli, I mean, or a gourmet store. And I just found the one that the boxes I like the most. But I think flooring is a huge choice. And a lot of times it's like floor in the kitchen and the floor in the bathrooms that, I don't know. I mean, I think lots of people always wonder about doing the wood floor in the kitchen or in bathrooms, and whether they can really live with it, and whether it needs to be something more durable. And but flooring is, I think, something that really, besides the color, the other materials, or the cabinetry style, really makes what a kitchen is. And whether it's wide plank or how it's you know, I know it's one of the most important choices, I think.
Do you
I
think
think
that
a lot of times we think about 3 or 4 different flooring choices for a while as we go through it with clients. You know, we might have a couple of ideas in play and then not decide till the very end. You know what I mean? It's something you kind of think about as the whole thing evolves.
Do you think that butler, pantry, or wet bars should match the main kitchen or be their own design?
Here it kind of matches with there's sort of a special sink. That one in the city, it was a contrast. A lot of times that's a place where we definitely make a contrast. Sometimes, like, the question was just about whether uppers and lower cabinets can be something different. It's almost like, I feel like maybe in this one kitchen, we're probably going to have like an oak butler's pantry, mudroom, and then a painted kitchen. And it's almost so that you get both. Like, so it's all, you know, that choice about what the floor would be, you kind of love it to be wood, but love it to be this beautiful stone. How do you get, you know, how do you get both things? Sometimes it's like the sort of secondary space to a kitchen can allow you to have both things that you love. And so, I don't know. It also, here, it just made it all feel bigger and stuff. So to be one thing.
All right, last question. I feel so bad that we can't answer all these questions because, oh my God, there are so many good ones. All right, answer them really quickly. Your kitchen, this is from Jamie Drake. Your kitchens hinge on the hinges. Who is your favorite source?
Oh, we use we're constantly getting hardware from Whitechapel, which is a great catalog. Some of the other ones have disappeared. And Crown City we loved for years, but it's gone. But I guess Whitechapel is a first go-to. And then of course there's other, you know, Nans and everything. It just gets so much more dear.
Yeah.
You know? And so.
All right. And then there's a question. I can answer this. What is the name of the milky glass? It's Bendheim, Bendheim, right?
Yeah.
And then we're going to finish on this one. This is a tricky one. I really feel bad we can't answer all of these. How would you define authenticity with respect to interior design, and how does one practice it?
You just, there's, being authentic is being authentic. It's like you're living up to what they're asking for, or telling them the truth if it's like not making sense, or you're, a lot of times I think authenticity is about those things that I love, of protecting something or connecting to an idea that you're beginning. And the idea could be protecting a beautiful house that was made in a wonderful way in the 1980s or the 1920s, or it could be just some, I'm one to a lot of times like remind clients, or even all of us working on it, like, but remember they said they really wanted whatever it was. It's like, it's kind of like protecting a a true idea, like what's true, like, and what's true can be lots of different things, or have different parts that need to be relevant. Like, why in design, why does something need to stay, let's stay true to this idea and not keep changing our mind every 5 seconds, or let's make sure it does this, or let's make sure that we make something lovely out of something that was a real favorite, and that it's primary. I don't know, it just
But isn't a lot of it just function? Like, you really, especially for kitchens, you put a lot of emphasis on function, and then the authenticity kind of follows in a way. I don't know.
And I spend a lot of time trying to get people who either cook or don't cook, or think they will or are going to, or whatever, or finding out how they really use a kitchen. Like, really, what do you do? And I kind of like go around it in the process of it a few times, and then even after we've mostly done it, we kind of go back to it again one more time. We're going to do that with this actually next week, or this week, with a project where the kitchen's been designed for a long time. There's some things that can shift before it goes into millwork drawings and stuff, and there's some things we'll switch, and it's the final sort of look at appliances and stuff. But like, we've added our own thoughts about how it will be used, and it's super important to get people to think about it, and help make sense for who they are, so if the refrigerator's way over by the dining room and living room, and they're really primarily never going to use that, and it really needs to be the other side of the room, it's been made the wrong way. No, that's just a silly thing, but if they're really going to live at the other side of this space, don't make it the furthest thing to go to.
Yeah.
So
all right. Well, our hour is up. You are a genius. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, everybody, for joining. I think we have to have another, because there are so many unanswered questions, and I'm sorry about that. But I found it so interesting, and can't thank you enough for being on.
It was fun to do. See you.
I feel lucky to know you.
Oh,
bye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.